Hello, my name is Savannah Swanson, junior at Washington State University, School of the Environment. Today, we will be exploring the effects of invasive plant species on their non-native ecosystems. For context, invasive species are species that are not native to the ecosystem in consideration. Invasive species make their way into ecosystems through a variety of ways, including humans, wildlife, wind, and water. Species such as Japanese barberry, English ivy, and bamboo have become invasive in North America in this very way. Invasive plants are also known for their ability to devastate native plants by establishing dominance over water, important nutrients, and space, or by disrupting soil stability. In order to formulate a hypothesis on the effects of invasive plant species on their non-native ecosystems, we must first review the studies of others for background information. Fire regimes are important to the overall health of an ecosystem. Many plants are unable to reproduce or reestablish themselves without it. In one study, a conceptual multi-phase model was presented to describe the invasive plant fire regime cycle and the full range of pathways by which invasive plant species alter fire regimes. Invasive plant species primarily alter the fire regimes of an ecosystem by changing fuel properties, such as increasing or decreasing fuel load, plant tissue flammability, and horizontal and vertical continuity. Wildfires that take place in invaded ecosystems will burn at a higher or lower severity, frequency, and may occur at different times of the year when compared to an ecosystem without invasive species present. Overall, the presence of invasive plants can dramatically change an ecosystem, making it difficult for it to return to its previous state. Although invasive plant species have little impact on their own as individuals, invasive plants with a rapid growth rate and short life cycle can spread quickly across an ecosystem and establish dominance over native vegetation. Another study suggests that, with high abundance, invasive plant species have the potential to harm the biodiversity and ecosystem functions of their non-native ecosystems. Studies also suggest that invasive plant species pose a threat to the conservation and restoration of critical ecosystems. When formulating a hypothesis, it is important to make our own observations in addition to the knowledge we have already gained from background research. Some plants, such as English ivy and kudzu, can be seen growing sporadically within forests and even branching out to cover nearby buildings and vehicles. This leads us to believe that invasive plant species compete heavily with native plants in the ecosystem. From here, we can formulate our hypothesis that invasive plants have a negative impact on the overall health of their non-native ecosystems. In our proposed study, the overall health of an ecosystem will be determined by analyzing community characteristics, such as net productivity, species diversity, and carbon sequestration. Next, we must test our hypothesis. For our critical test, we will be performing a survey on ecosystems with and without invasive species present, and comparing the data between these ecosystems. All ecosystems selected to be surveyed will be similar in physiognomy, climate, and biome to easier analyze the differences in plant community characteristics. 6 1-square-acre plots will be established within Olympic National Park, with 3 plots including invasive plant species and 3 without. When preparing to conduct a test on a hypothesis, it is important to first make assumptions about our critical test. For our critical test, we will be assuming that the impact of all invasive plant species are the same, the impact of all invasive species are negative, and there are no invasive species present in sites selected as a control. Now that we have made our assumptions, we should also consider alternative hypotheses for our observations. Pests, such as insects, associated with invasive plant species may have more of a negative effect on the ecosystem than the actual plant does. Another alternative hypothesis is that other disturbances are present within the ecosystem in question. It is possible that we are mistaking the impact of other disturbances for invasive species. And finally, the presence of invasive plant species in a non-native ecosystem may be a result of succession. With our critical test prepared and our alternative hypotheses established, it is now time to make predictions on the results of our critical test. I predict that sites with invasive species present will have a lower net productivity, species diversity, and carbon sequestration than those without. This would indicate that invasive plant species negatively affect their non-native ecosystems. Even if the results of our critical test do not align with our predictions, the results of our test will help us have a better understanding of the effects of invasive plant species. This understanding could potentially provide us with ideas on how to properly manage invasive plant populations and further prevent them from establishing in non-native ecosystems. Suggested further research on invasive plants may include their direct and indirect effects on wildlife populations. Overall, there is much more to learn about the effects of invasive plant species on not only plant communities, but on wildlife communities as well. I look forward to studies on this topic in the future, but for now, thank you for watching.